Welcome to Authors Revealed. I'm Becky Anderson. We are thrilled to have Duke All-American basketball player and former Bull player Jay Williams with his memoir, Life is Not an Accident, a memoir of reinvention. Well, Jay, thank you so much for coming to Anderson's in Naperville. We have been so waiting for this. There's a lot of fans going to be here tonight for you.
I'm super excited to be here. First off, I get a chance to be interviewed by you. How could it get any better?
Oh my gosh, it's quite the opposite. But I want to tell you, what a courageous book you've written.
Thank you.
And it's only been out for what, 8 days, 9, something like that?
It feels like it's
officially?
been out for 3.5, 4 years.
Well,
But
this was a real undertaking for you to write the story. But what I want to know, what are you hearing from people who have read the book, or family, friends, people you've played with, or just people who have read the book? What have you heard so far?
family has been interesting. I think for my family, it addressed some issues that people didn't really know about my family.
Yeah.
So it's been fascinating because that's forced us to have conversations that we haven't had in our past. You know how certain things happen in life, you just kind of breeze over them and act like they never happened.
Yeah, right.
So it's been great for us in that aspect.
Sure.
And from fans and from people out there, I think it's been amazing. It's been a little bit overwhelming for me, just because I've been getting some of these emotionally just wrenched stories of people that have gone through their own accidents, and trying to take the time to write them back a book and try to give them different advice on how to maybe get out of their own way or their own funk.
Sure.
It's a little bit draining, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah,
you know what I
right.
mean? It's a way for me to connect with people, and it's been the most cathartic thing I've ever done in my life.
Well, and that's what this whole thing about helping other people. But that was, one of my questions. This has probably been writing this because you've lived all this, but now writing about it, that catharsis, but also that it's therapeutic for what you've been through, and now you can share that experience with other people.
Yeah, and it took me multiple drafts to get to the point where I finally got the final product behind me, and. I tell you though, one thing, it's, so much of my past, in particular with my accident, I almost forced myself to forget things.
Right.
Because why do I want to remember the worst day of my life?
Right.
And so when you're going back through the process of breaking down detail after detail about who I was back then, how I treated people, which is completely different than how I am today at 34.
Right.
And embracing that person who I have no idea who he was back then.
Right,
It was difficult, and to talk the reader through, hey, look, this is actually what I thought back then, and kind of hope that you get the prayer of them not judging you.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Well, and the title, Life is Not an Accident, a memoir of reinvention. And I'm sure part of that, that person you were in 2003 and where you are today, you are a different person, but you feel like you've come out on the other side. You've been through a lot, but you come out, you're a better person in some way.
I am, and I feel like everything, I know it's a cliche, but everything does happen for some particular reason. And with me, look, I pondered for a year before I started writing about how I would open a book.
Right. Sure.
And for the longest time, I had this idea, I'm going to write a letter to my younger self.
Right.
So I would go through sheets and sheets of paper, and what would I say, and how would I say it, and would I get my point across, and would that Jason actually not just hear me, but would he listen to me?
Sure.
And I finally got to the point where I was like, what, I wouldn't write a letter to myself, because I would want myself to trust in the process and trust in the struggle, because that has made me better off for dealing with all that.
So that day in 2003, and the way you open up the book, I don't think you could have opened it up in a better way, because that was the before and now the after.
It's the truth, yeah.
But you title it Perfect, which I thought was such an interesting way that you titled, the beginning of the book, Perfect.
It was the perfect day.
Yeah.
And in the bigger scheme, it was the perfect day, because it altered the path of my life.
Right, okay.
And a lot of people can't understand that.
Sure.
Obviously, Imperfect, the next chapter talks about, when it all kind of hits in at that given moment, it kind of take you through the thought process of the next stream of thoughts. But look, it was one of those days where, woke up early that morning, got on a flight after hanging out back in Durham, and, get to Chicago, take a nap, go practice at the Berto Center, and I started to recognize, and it started to settle in the fact of, okay, this is who I need to be in order to be the leader for this team, and I'm getting back to the old ways of who Jason was when he was a two-time National Player of the Year. And then, you know, it kind of takes you into another nap, and then my accident. And but right before my accident, it was one of those days where it was a beautiful summer day in Chicago. And it was just how a series of events lead you to a certain part of your life. And if it was never sunny, I would never take my bike out. But it was a perfect day, and I felt like I had to embrace that perfect day.
And you talk about you had a premonition a few years earlier. You had sort of a dream where you had sort of seen something that, you know, that now sort of came true on that day.
Yeah, with my motorcycle accident, it was one of those things that I was on my bike pulling away, and I had no helmet on, had no protective gear on, and had a new muffler. And at the time, I wanted to show everybody my muffler, even though nobody was around but my agent. So I revved it loud the first time, second time louder than the first, and in the middle of my third, it just slipped into second gear. And I popped a wheelie and held onto the handlebars, and it forced the throttle to go back even more, and my bottom wheel spun out and hit a utility pole. And as I'm literally spinning in the air parallel to the ground, you know, accidents happen. You know, it feels like you're in slow-mo. And just had this, I was like, wow, I've experienced this before, I've seen it before. And sure enough, I had, you know, several years earlier when I was waiting to play in my first college basketball game for Coach K at Madison Square Garden. I couldn't go to sleep because I was anxious about the whole game, and had this dream I was spinning around, and I was about to hit something. And I don't know. It's just so ironic that happened.
Yeah,
you know?
really ironic. You know, so you have been honored so much in the past for your skill as a basketball player. You know, in high school, and then, you know, at Duke, and then second, you know, you were number 2 in the draft pick and ended up at the Bulls, and then here you get Michael Jordan's locker when you come to the Bulls, right? So tell us about, you know, what are you most proud of, and I would love to know about your family, because I think you were equipped. Your parents gave you some incredible gifts.
They did.
And your mom sounds like just an incredible woman.
Both my parents are.
Yes,
my mother is the social butterfly. If she was here right now, and she would be talking to everybody.
Okay.
So I have a lot of that in me.
I can see that.
I also have
for
my
sure.
father in me, where at times I'm very reserved, and I like being by myself. I'm a private individual.
Sure.
But the one thing that my parents very much have in common is their dedication to education. And I think even though I haven't made every decision in the right way, I was equipped with the tools and the work ethic to find my way back on my feet. And you know, I try to talk to kids all the time. It's not a question of, you know, how you fall, because you're going to fall. We all fall. But it's a matter of how you pick yourself back up. And for such a long time, I allowed my mistake to define my character, and I was afraid of being vulnerable. And you know, I don't know if you have kids, but you know, I don't have kids yet. But as a little boy, you know, you're taught, you fall down, you're not supposed to cry. You know, you're not supposed to show emotion. That's not being a man. And it wasn't until I truly started to become vulnerable and start to let people know how I felt and explain my pain, and I felt I was even more empowered than I ever could have been.
Right, sure. So you majored in sociology at Duke, and you could have jumped to the NBA after your sophomore year, right? But someone helped you and convinced you to stay, and you graduated early though.
I did. 3
and you
years.
got a degree in sociology. That is pretty amazing.
That's my family.
I know, but your whole, I love reading about your whole educational process. You know, you started off in Montessori school, you know, which I think is so cool, but I think it's wonderful. And I think that's one of the messages you'd like to talk to kids about school, but it's also not to having them define themselves with sports alone, if that is their only advantage, you know. That's
and also about the appreciation of the complexity of identity. It's that, you know, it's okay to be different. I was deemed different my entire life, especially, you know, being raised in a particularly African-American Latin town, and then going to school at a predominantly Caucasian school. You know, and we have people say to me things, but when I came back home, like, why do you speak so white? I'm like, well, what do you mean? If I'm proper and I'm articulated, that doesn't mean that I'm white. I'm African-American. It's just the way I am. Or I will go to my school and I would hang out or play sports, and like, you're so hood, you're so black. I'm like, well, wait a second. So just to embrace being different, and that it's okay. And it's one of those things, as you grow older, all of a sudden that becomes like what your appeal to people is, like, oh, he's very different, or he's inquisitive. And I think that's why, you know, I'm fascinated with people, and sociology could not have been a better degree for me.
So it's really come to serve you really well.
Full circle.
Yeah, right. You know, I read in the book that you said something about being a good person and putting the work in, like putting the work into whatever you do. And did that mantra serve you well after the accident? Because knowing the ups and downs you had in your recovery, and I mean, did that mantra really work that when it came to the point where you had to get yourself up and going?
It did. It obviously it evolved over time,
Okay.
and you know, I think we all have to go through this process where we find, you know, who do we want to be, and if we're really truly committed to being that person, right? So for me at 21, I wanted to be a professional player, right? You see movies about it, you're excited about that lifestyle, about the things it could provide for your family. And I got lost in that. And then when you get hurt, I spent a lot of my time, you know, clinging to the past, trying to capture this ghost of who I was before, because I felt slighted and I was angry at myself for making such a horrible mistake and letting this one thing I've been working for 21 years of my life literally slipped through the cracks of my fingers. And it wasn't until I got to the point where I don't know who I'm chasing anymore, because I'm not that person. I'm somebody completely different who has a completely different outlook on life. And actually I started to, instead of focusing on just climbing to the top of that mountain, I stopped myself for a minute and said, wow, okay, I've covered so much ground. And so focused on the past, I never paid attention to the things that were right in front of my face. And just being present and being happy about it. It took time.
Right. No, I totally see that. You know, you talk about your family, your mom and your dad and things like that, but you had the family of your Duke family and Coach K, and talking about that team and how, you know, can you tell us a little bit what that team, what that family meant when you were a player and you were in college, you know, you were doing that, but also too what they meant to you after the accident?
Well, especially I was the only child growing up, so I didn't really have people to bounce ideas off of, to get advice other than my parents. And as we all know, you know, you go to your parents for certain things, not everything. So having that brotherhood, that band of brothers with the Duke players meant the world to me. And also having somebody that held me to a standard way higher than I ever held myself. It was the first time I've had somebody like that in my life. And Kay is so brilliant because and a lot of people love to talk about Duke, and they don't, you know, produce the quality of pros that we think they should have, like the elite superstars and stuff like that. But I look at every person that has left that organization, and I can't say anything bad about the people who they are.
Right. Well, see, isn't that speaking volumes?
It does. You know, and it's not about people. People are fixated on the wrong game. He's not just about the game of basketball. I mean, obviously he's a Hall of Famer and he wins championships, but he's more fixated on the game of life. And that's where he truly shapes you and molds individuals to be better people.
Right. You know, your recovery, you had, I think, 9 operations.
Arduous.
Oh my gosh, in 18 months, and painkillers, morphine and Oxycontin and everything. But the depression and all the things you went through, how did you eventually move past that day in 2003 and you know, not fall into that, where most people could fall into that total path to self-destruction to the end?
I was on that path of self-destruction for a while. You can just imagine the dichotomy between living downtown in Chicago and Michigan and being able to take your mom on shopping sprees and you think, I've achieved this dream we've been waiting for. And then finding yourself 4.5 years later living on the Lower East Side of New York on 13th and First in this dungeon-like apartment with 3 of your friends who are bartenders with plates everywhere and trash on the floor. And that style, you know, it's completely different. And I was angry. Decided I didn't want to play basketball anymore. I was trying to find out who the heck I was going to be in this life moving forward. And unfortunately with males, we associate our identity with what we do, you know, with our jobs. So, you know, that's why you hear a lot of guys say, oh, I need to find out who I am first, or I want to make this amount of money before I can provide for my family. And so for me, I was caught in that same trap, you know. Do I have a job to be a man and support a family and find a wife, or all this stuff? And in New York is a little bit, it's different. It's Chicago too and other places I've been to, but I was on a daily basis confronted with people that reminded me of the worst day of my life. And people that would try to recognize me and say, you're the guy who got in that wreck, right? How are you?
Yeah.
And people don't do it ill-intended.
No. But for you,
it automatically brings me back to 2003.
That's right.
And constantly living with that,
Sure.
I started to do a lot more Oxycontin, because Oxycontin for me, it muted you. So I would see your mouth moving, and I wouldn't hear what you were saying. I would just shake my head. And I would even say things where I found myself apologizing to people for what I had done to myself. Saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it, it was a mistake. And it wasn't until I started to solicit my board, and what I mean by that is I had some people around me that were very much like Coach K. They were saying, I refuse to let you fail, and I'm going to have you win. And I started to pay attention more to who I surrounded myself with.
You know, after you recovered, you tried a comeback, and then I think you pulled a hamstring or.
What did I do? I have no idea at this point.
No.
I've lost count.
I know, but was that tough? And how was it? That final decision that that's it. My career as a professional basketball player is over. Did you fall back into some of that stuff? And how did you pull yourself out again with the same sort of routine?
Just tired.
Yeah.
I was tired.
Oh, I can't imagine.
2.5, 3 years of
Yeah.
countless surgeries, therapy 2 times a day,
Right.
the pain that comes along with the therapy of getting my knee manipulated twice,
Right.
Working with a therapist, working through scar tissue, having a tendon transfer where I had to learn how to walk again,
Sure.
where they took the tendon on the inside of my foot, put it on the top of my foot, so when I walk on my left foot, I think about mentally how you have to do that. I think about pulling my foot inwards, and it pulls it up slightly. So I had to reteach myself how to walk. And
Wow.
all that stuff in conjunction with trying to play basketball again, I was like, enough. Like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm stressing myself out 24/7.
Sure.
So that was difficult, but also, once I finally stopped, it just felt like I had this huge burden off my shoulders.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, like we're at ground zero right now, and that stinks because we didn't expect to be here at 25, but let's start this process of finding out who the heck I am without this sport that I've identified myself.
Sure.
And that's a very eye-opening opportunity.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
You're like, I like this, I like that, maybe I could do this. I felt like any other 21-year-old kid graduating from college. What am I going to do now?
Right.
You have to figure it out.
But I think you probably realize how many talents you do have, and taking all those things. It might have been kind of exciting in a way to know that you have so much potential to do many other things.
Well, so I try to tell kids who are in college now, and I was one of these kids, that's why I can speak to it. Don't wait until your senior year where you're like, what am I going to do after school?
Yeah.
So one of the things I did is I started asking my board, okay, can we go through all my pros and my cons?
Oh.
Can we talk about some of the things you think I do well, and then some of the things you don't like about me? Which is humbling, by the way.
Right.
My friends are like, by the way, you lie, you don't show up, you're never on time, you don't respond. You're like, okay, that's not good.
So they're being pretty brutal,
Yeah,
pretty honest.
You need that, right? Because you need a baseline.
Yeah, you don't need somebody to tell you, to shade the truth.
You don't need things to be sugar-coated.
Yeah, right.
And for me, it was like, okay, I kind of found out, I'm good with people. I wasn't as great with follow-up, but I had to work on different things. And I don't know, it just kind of led me into randomly trying out TV and just running away with it.
Yeah.
And that camera, for some reason, when that camera goes on and that red light goes on, it's like the ball is being tipped.
Yeah.
It's like the game is just starting for me, and it gives me the same adrenaline rush that I get from playing.
That's wonderful. I think what's so wonderful about this book, you did not make it into a pity story.
It's not.
It is so not that kind of book. It is totally, really inspirational. But one thing I do want to ask you, and I'm sure people will love to hear that, you do talk about a time when you played against Michael Jordan.
Oh, that one.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think people would love to hear that, since now that you had his old locker.
Yeah, well, that was an experience within itself. Because it was,
I'm sure.
By itself, it was isolated, and nobody was around it for years. And I'm like, why not? I mean, obviously, last time somebody sat in here, we won a lot of games, so maybe we should start over again. That didn't necessarily go by too well with the media. But playing against him it was interesting. And I'm not comparing myself to Michael or to Kobe. We're talking about the greatest players ever to play our sport. But I will say, the one thing that Duke taught me was that even though I was the target because I went to school at Duke and I was a National Player of the Year, the one great trait that Coach K taught me about is you're always going to be the hunter. You're never going to have the mentality of being the hunted. And I think that really helps me in life because regardless of whatever I'm able to achieve, I'm like, no. I'm
Right, sure.
I have to attack. I have to maintain attacking. And playing against Jordan that one day, obviously I couldn't wait for the opportunity to play against him, right? And
sure.
almost in a way, I found a way to get angry. I had to play angry. Okay, that was the way I got the best out of myself. And sitting there watching our fan base give this man a 10-minute standing ovation had me infuriated.
Ooh,
I'm like,
there
we just
you go.
lost 20-some games, and you guys are praising this guy here who's coming in for another team, right? Just finding ways to get angry. The one thing I will say about Michael, I think he was 40 around that time, I've never had a man tell me how they were going to score on me.
I know, that was so interesting the way you wrote that in the book.
It wasn't only interesting, it was embarrassing. Because he actually did exactly what he told me he was going to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I played against him until I started to recognize, that's the mental warfare on a different level.
Or being that hunter.
I had never experienced that before. And little things that you are able to take away from him, like, okay, I'll keep that here in case I need to do that one day.
Yeah. So, all this stuff you're doing with ESPN, tell us a bit about that. You talked about how you're really enjoying this, but how did you get into working with ESPN? Because, your analysis and everything is just absolutely great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As somebody, people love to be bullies behind the keyboard on Twitter, and somebody was like, oh, come on, Jay, the only reason you got your start is because you were good at basketball. And I was like, you're exactly right. I did get my start because I played basketball for Coach K, and I played for the Bulls, and I understand how I got my foot in the door. But that didn't stop me from working my tail off to be better at it.
Sure.
And, the first time I did TV, I was so young, I kind of got pushed into it because it was something to do to try to take my mind off playing.
Right.
But it didn't do that. It only made me think about playing even more. Because now I'm surrounded by people that I just competed with years earlier. And I was seeing all these guys get drafted and play well. And that made me extremely, I was angry.
Sure.
I had a lot of animosity towards people for that. So, I was still doing Oxycontin around that given time, because I didn't want to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But the second time I got into doing TV, I started to become intellectually stimulated because there's so much going on, right?
Sure,
and it very much felt like I was a point guard again. And when you're a point guard, you're bringing the ball down the court. Not only am I supposed to tell you where you need to be on the court and the other three players that we're playing with, but I'm also an extension of my coach. So I'm paying attention to him. What play are we running? Is everybody the places they need to be? What time are we at with the shot clock? Okay, do I need to score? Who do I need to get the ball touched to? So all these different things. And when I was on the air, I had an IFB in my ear. I had somebody talking to me. Hey, you're on camera 2. You're on camera 3. And by the way, you're still in the middle of this conversation, which is just not a conversation. We're having a debate. So you have to be mentally aware of what this person is saying so you can debate him properly.
Sure.
So all those different things it kept me so engaged. I just fell in love with it.
So, before I know you have some tattoos, and you mentioned in the book,
I do. Yep.
And, before your accident, of course you got these, but the meanings of them really meant something to you after everything that happened. So can you tell us about a couple of them?
Yeah, I have 10, and it's really funny, people never think that I have tattoos, like, oh, you're a clean-cut Duke altar boy, and I'm like, okay, it's okay. But I have a tattoo on my left wrist that says believe here, and that's actually the wrist that I tried to, and when I tried to commit suicide for the first time, I remember looking at my tattoo and saying, I don't really believe in anything anymore. Yeah. I have a tattoo here on my forearm that is a Mahatma Gandhi quote. It's, strength does not come from, physical capacity. It comes from indomitable will. And how ironic is that, right?
No kidding.
For everything that's happened in my life about where you truly get your power from.
Yeah.
And then I have one over here that is really, really scary, crazy ironic. It says, to err is human, to forgive is divine. And, I kind of talk about that in the last couple of chapters because I had to learn how to forgive my father because of the domestic violence that occurred in the past, my mother. And it was a process for me because I had to learn how to forgive him if I was only going to be able to forgive myself one day. And
that's
it's
huge.
fascinating how your mind has to work through different things. It processes information.
Yeah. So it's interesting that these messages you've put on your
All
body.
before I got hurt.
Right. That is really,
Constant
really...
reminders.
Now I hear you still get out and play.
I do.
And do you enjoy it?
Operative word, like try to play.
Try to play, but you enjoy it.
I do.
Okay.
You know what? If I played with guys who were pros before, and if I had to play basketball one day a week, I think I could still potentially play in the NBA. but I can't play 4 or 5 days a week anymore. But I still love it. There's still something about the sport. I always tell people I'm the racehorse. Like eventually somebody's going to put a bullet in my head and just put me down because I'm never going to stop playing. I'm probably going to have to get a knee replacement. These things are going to happen. But there's still something about the rush that playing basketball provides for me. And I've always said this about this sport. I know I got paid to play this sport, and I was lucky enough to be #2 pick in the draft. I would have played this sport regardless of whether I ever made money or not, because I still love it.
So I know you get out and talk, and I know, and I hold this whole experience of writing this book, but I know you get out and talk to groups, and so is there any, I'm sure you get experiences where someone will come up to you and you said that what you have said has really moved them and moved them to change their own lives. So I'm sure you're getting letters, like you said, from the book. But do you do that kind of inspirational speaking? And does it help you each time you speak in writing this book to help you, you went through so much?
It does help me, but I think even more importantly, I'm a people person, and I love helping people. I love seeing people, everybody has pain, everybody's had their accident, but I love seeing people embrace it and not letting it define them, but making it part of their journey and recognizing that you have to start living your life through the prism of optimism. And we all fall down, but it's about how you pick yourself back up that truly matters. And that really describes more about your character, more so than you just falling down. So hearing people's paths and helping them try to achieve their dreams and get back up on their feet, that means the world to me.
I know you are, besides all your ESPN and other things, I know you have other interests and other projects you're into. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those other things?
Well, I work with charities. I have a charity I work with, a company called Rising Stars, where we work with different boroughs outside of New York City, and we do a whole bunch of shadowing programs for younger kids and mentoring programs and after-schooling programs, because once again, I'm all about education and removing kids away from some of their distractions, which are hanging on the corners and hanging on the streets doing things you shouldn't be doing in the first place. And then I'm dying to do morning news. I mean, you would be so good I am so excited about that opportunity one day, and to do human interest stories. And I'm kind of nerdy. I love watching 60 Minutes and learning new fascinating things about people. And if there's some way I can add different elements of that into my life, career-wise, I mean, that would be a dream come true.
Oh, you'd be great at that.
Thank you.
So how about coaching? Have you thought about coaching at all?
I have. I love the on-court aspect of coaching, teaching kids plays and shaping kids' lives. I don't know if I necessarily like the recruiting part of it. Because I spent some time working with an agency and I had a bad experience with that. And I know how many hands are in the cookie jars with some of these kids. And it's almost finding a needle in a haystack. It's difficult to really kind of find out who's the person truly helping the kid make his decisions. And then is he making the right decision because he truly feels that way? Or is there some kind of incentive, maybe monetarily or relationship-wise, that somebody could provide for him that he has to take this path? And I don't know if I want my career to be in the hands of a 14, 15-year-old kids. And these kids are used to being catered to now, like they're the next coming of LeBron James. I don't know if I can handle that yet. Maybe one day.
Yeah, one day.
Maybe one day.
Well, morning news first.
Morning news first.
Okay, all right, that's good. So what do you hope people will take away? I mean, anyone who picks up this book and they want to read a really good memoir, what do you hope they're going to take away?
That life is tough. And you know what? It's okay that it's tough. It should be tough. It's almost the same way people ask me about relationships, right? So my girlfriend now, Carissa, and she went through a divorce. That was her accident. Like, I don't want my relationships to be happy all the time. That's not real. That's not authentic. The fact that you're going to go through highs and lows makes me so much more present in the moment that I'm actually experiencing life. And it's worth the ride. It's worth it. Like I'm gonna have downs, and there are times I'm gonna be frustrated, and that's okay because I know that I'm here and I have a chance to change that. And just being around my family and it really appreciating the people that I'm surrounded by now.
Well, it sounds like you surrounded yourself with a lot of really incredible people, though, too.
Thank you.
Jay, thank you so much, and thank you so much for coming to see us. It's been a real pleasure.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
What a great conversation with Jay Williams about his memoir, Life is Not an Accident, a memoir of reinvention. You absolutely got to read this one. Thanks for joining me on Authors Revealed.